Hi everybody, as she said, we're here to talk about field and glue today. So the focus is on how to get the models out to the field and get them to use them a little bit more than maybe they have been in the past. And then once you've gained some valuable information from the field, how to provide that owner to gain them some value and to have them pick up the building and the maintenance of that building a little bit quicker. So my background is I came from the construction field. I worked as a project engineer and then as a project manager on a bunch of projects in the Denver metro area. I used BIM 360. It was actually Vela back then on a project back in 2010 downtown, and then we implemented BIM 360 as a company. So we implemented it to about 1,100 users across the company and got them to use it pretty regularly. So like I said, today we're going to focus mainly on getting the field crews to use that model more often and on how to get that information out to the field. So there we go. So we're going to focus on getting the model into the field, and then once we provided this model to the field, how we can also get it to the owner as part of a cleaner, more valuable handover documentation. So first of all, I want to just start in Navisworks and show you how it can tie to glue for getting the model up into glue, but also for some of your coordination. So we'll start there. So in Navisworks, I've brought up just a model in here just to show you. So this model, we can go ahead and select a project that we'd like to add it to. So in this case, I'm going to show you this demo product. And we can merge it in here. So I've already done this for you, so I won't click it again. But it's as simple as those 2 clicks, and from there the model will show up in glue for us. You can also refresh and use the views and items that come from Navis to tie the 2 products together. If this is perhaps a fire protection model or a new model that you've received that isn't previously in the product, so you're not just updating it, we can actually append this to our product. So we can add it into our product. So it's already been in there, but we could add this, merge it into the product if we would like. So in Revit, Navis, and AutoCAD MEP, it's simply in this BIM 360 add-in toolbar, and we select our project after we sign in, and from there it's already in glue. So it's pretty simple. So if we pull up the glue product in here, it'll list our different projects. So I'm going to go down to the project we were just working in. And you can see here is the model that I brought into the project. So from there, you can click on it and see it, use it for coordination purposes, etc. This merged project model is the model that contains maybe structural, mechanical, electrical, architectural models, so kind of all those models tied together so we can see them referenced to each other. All right, so my toolbar is on my other page. All right. So in here you can see I've got the structural model, exterior walls, and the mechanical model. So we can turn these on and off and see the different models. If we look at the different views that we have in this model, if I can get that screen to show up. So if we looked at this model, we would see that the views that come out of the architectural model are pretty basic. They tend to be just related to what the design team needed. So maybe 3D view Johnny or 3D view Mr. Rogers. So they aren't super useful for the field guys. So we can create views for our field guys. Sorry guys, I have a menu that is not showing up because of the webinar. So let me see if I can get it to pop up. So we can create different views for the guys to see that become more useful for them. So if we can review. So that made it worse, not better. Sorry guys. On the GoToWebinar, for some reason, it sometimes pulls up. It hides the menus. So let me see if I can get those to show up again. Hard to show you how to create views without that showing up. Just pulling it up, restarting, guys, sorry.
Alyssa, while we're waiting, this menu, is this something that, what's typically on this menu? Can you just kind of talk us through it while we're waiting to see it?
I can. So this menu is going to include where we can run some typical common clashes. It's also going to provide us a place where we can set up some views and where we can, sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once. So we can also share this model with the field guys. So I'm just opening up the model. All right. All right. So if you can see my screen, here's the menu that I've been looking for. So in here is this view menu. And in this menu, we can actually create some shared views that can be more useful for the field guys. So if we click here, I've created one for the stair core, which is something common that the field guys often need to see all the coordination and the dimensions of. So we can create this view and we can add it. And from here we can name it. And we can decide if it's just a view that I want to see or the whole project, so we can share it for the whole project. So I've already added it in here. If you'd like, you could also email a notification to say that it's there. So that can be really helpful. When the field guys, if the views are just generic named and not very useful for them, it's harder for them to learn how to get around the model, and it can take a longer time frame for them to get used to using that model. So other things to note, in Glue you can do markups and share them with the architect or with your designers or maybe the project manager to give them different information that you'd like to share, and you can run clashes in here as well. So if we were to take a look at the steel versus mechanical set, it'll run this clash. We can click on one of them. So here's a clash between this pipe and the floor slab. So that's probably not that important to us. It's just going through the slab, so we can actually just go ahead and close this item out. We could also make a comment or send an email and notify different users about this item getting closed, or maybe we want to notify them that it needs changed. So in Glue, we're going to focus today mainly on kind of getting this information out to the field guys, but do know that you can run simple clashes as a group, and your subcontractors can also run these clashes on their own once the models are in here. So instead of managing those and going through all of the clashes in Navis on a go-to meeting once a week, they can run their own clashes when they upload those models through Navis, Revit, or AutoCAD. So once we have those different, once we have those in here, we can go ahead and take a look at some mechanical equipment. So if we looked at this, so let's pick a connection or one of these items in here. So say we would like to track, I don't know, this toilet in field, we can go in here, right-click, and create an equipment set. This will actually pull it into field where we can create a piece of equipment where we can track the maintenance manual, installation manual, etc., and provide that out to the field and then to the owner. So you can see here I've already added a water heater and a energy recovery unit and some lighting, so we're going to focus today on this water heater. So now that we've set up our views and we've made it more useful for the field guys, once we've also set up equipment that we'd like to track for the owner, we can go ahead and click this little button right here and share with field. And this here will update the model to the field guys. So I've already done that to make sure that was going to work for us, but it's really just a click. This step is pretty important, I think, instead of it just doing it automatically, because as you're running those clashes, maybe you've clashed one floor but not another, or you're testing out a change with the owner, you may or may not want to share it with the field right away. So you can kind of decide when the office would like to provide this to the field guys. Okay, so next we're in field and we can pick up this model. So in here we've added the model from BIM 360 Glue, so we can go through here and pick up our project and add that model, which I've done. From here you can see the model and we can actually manage this equipment model mapping. So it's going to bring in all of these units that we just mapped. And so in here we can take this water heater and we can map it to equipment type water heaters, and we can decide if we want to track all the water heaters at once or if we want to track each the water heaters as a group. So we can make that decision here. So that will map our equipment. And that seems pretty insignificant at the moment, but when we look at the, on the iPad, I'll make this bigger so you guys can see it. So on our iPad, we can take a look then at this equipment, and it'll provide us with this list. So these items are now out to the iPads and the field guys, and they can take a look at this water heater. It'll provide them all the different information that you'd like, and you can make this more extensive or less depending on what you guys are willing to collect or what your owner is requiring. So they can take a look, for example, at this piece of equipment, and they can type in the serial number right here. From there, they can also do any startup checklists. So if you have any functional or startup checklist, we can go through here, and they can click pass, pass, fail, etc., and type it in. So if an item fails, like this item here, it's going to create an issue automatically. So we can click on that, and it'll track that item. So it'll have that it was equipment type commissioning already. We can go ahead and add a picture. So we can take a picture of the item to add and track. We can assign it to a company, so AAA Boilermakers maybe in this case, and we can make sure the status is set as open. So here you can see all the issues related to this piece of equipment. So we can track these as a whole commissioning list, or piece of equipment by piece of equipment. This can be pretty handy if you have a few different air handlers and maybe one's been struggling, had a lot of issues getting it started up and working correctly. So it can be a benefit to print this list out and take it to the manufacturer or the installer and maybe get your warranty extended or work with them to get it working properly. You can also see the attachments here, so we can have submittals, owner maintenance manuals, startup manuals, any type of handover documentation that you'd like to provide. We can also make any comments and notes. So for example, right here I've said, that this equipment is ready for electrical, but the guys can write different notes. We've ordered the filters and they'll be here Friday, etc. We can also assign a task. So in this task we could say that we're ready for startup, controls on site Friday, we can go ahead and assign this to the responsible party and the responsible company. I'm not sure if I have the controls guide in here. We can assign it out, and we can schedule it for Friday. So from there, we can track this item as it relates to the piece of equipment. So once we have all this in here, this is the piece of equipment again, and here's all the information related to it all in one spot. We can also go see this piece of equipment in the model. So we can go in here and see it in the room. We can click on it and see all the properties related to it. So in this case, it's the area and the flow, etc., but it could be the expected CFM versus actual. It could be the temperature that you're expecting, etc., but all of that design information can be in here. All right. Also, if there's any issues related to the model, we can go in here and push and pin an issue to the 3D model and go ahead and track this issue. So again, we can add any pictures. And we can maybe assign it a different issue type. Perhaps this is an MEP observation item. We can assign it to a company that would like to repair the issue and go ahead and maybe track why this issue happened. So perhaps this is lack of coordination. There's not enough clearance, for example. So this really allows us to take a 3D look at this model for the guys. So this is under equipment where all of this lies, but for the field guys, maybe it's a concrete issue or some other issue. This model is available in here. And so this model can be viewed offline. They don't need to have internet available once they've went ahead and synced the project. So they can go and click on items and see the properties, so whether it's the wall type or the thickness, etc. They can go in here and turn it off so they can see past it. One of the important things to also teach them is that they can get around the model a little bit easier than they used to. So for example, we can pick that we'd like to go down to the ground floor. We can put ourselves in the room and spin ourselves the direction that we'd like to see with this little orange dot, and then we can click go up here in the top right. So from there we can get ourselves in this room, see what we need to see, etc. So before, the guys really used to have to know how to navigate exactly. They'd have to be able to zoom in to the certain floor level to get to the floor they needed, but now they can really just jump back and forth between the floors and be able to view in the direction that they'd like. So from here we can go ahead and create a pin as well. You know, in this case, maybe the countertop is wrong or it wasn't installed at the correct ADA height, and we can go ahead and assign it to the subcontractor as well. It's also good to note that they can take some different measurements. So we can measure between two items. So here in the measurement tool, there's point to point, which can be really tough because they have to be pretty exact to be able to get these measurements. But what's also nice is that they can do surface to surface. So we can do perhaps the surface of this column versus this window. So we can see that in the X direction, it's exactly 4 foot 8 5/8 inches apart, and there was no difference in Y or Z. So that really helps get a clearance measurement. Maybe that's for the lighting to the floor. Maybe that's from a column to a light to figure out how much clearance they have to be able to fix an issue. And when we go back to these views again, you can see in here that we have a bunch of random views that were made by the office, but it's really hard for field guys to figure out how these views are going to help them. So up here we can see the shared views, and we can click on those and see the views that'll help the field guys. So this would be a conversation with the foreman about exactly what they want to see, what makes it easier for them, some common areas that they zoom to in the model that they'd like to see. From there, they can just click on that view and it'll bring up that view. So to kind of summarize, once we're in the field product, the guys can get that view on their iPad. They do not need to have Wi-Fi the whole time. They can see the model, they can enter the information on the equipment, they can run those checklists without Wi-Fi if your site is not lit up. And when they're done, they can simply sync that information will go all up to back up to the cloud. A lot of times what I hear is that it's super time consuming for the field guys to go and enter some of this information in about the piece of equipment, but all of this information can flow to the owner. So the uptick for the owner for re-entering all of this information by hand and getting it all into their FM system is a significant time savings. And what we found is that the field guys are often waiting for the piece of equipment to start up or get up to a certain temperature. Maybe it's ramping up to a certain CFM for a test. So they do have some time to enter in the barcode or the serial number or anything like that. So another thing to note is that you can actually use barcoding. So if we were to scan the barcode, so the guys got lost and they couldn't find their way around to specifically which unit that is, they can scan the barcode and it'll actually bring up that piece of equipment's information right then and there. So once we have all of this information on the iPad, that's great. We've entered it all in. We've provided the model that's more useful for the field and kind of teaches them how to get around the model and use it a little bit more intuitively. But how do we get all this information to the field? So if we are in the field product, we can click here on equipment. Are there any questions yet while we're waiting on this by chance?
No questions as of now, but if you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat queue and we can get to them as we have some time.
Great. All right, so on the website application, we can actually export all of this information out to the owner. So there's a couple ways. We could take it back to the model and it can tie into their existing FM system through an add-in. We can export it into Excel and they can upload it into their FM system, or we can export it out to BIM 360 Ops. So in the case of BIM 360 Ops, it's just entering a code. So if we go to the Ops product, and BIM 360 Ops is just a online simple FM management tool for the owner. There's no initial cost. There is once they get up to a certain number of tickets per building. But it's simple to set up and easy for them to use. It might be a great way to get an owner started with all the data that you're providing them as part of the handovers. So from here we can just get the code out of this product. Slow too. And we can type it in here. I already have it. Oops, nope. So we can type this code in here, and all of that information will automatically sync into the product. And at that point, you can provide the owner just a single sign-in so they can get access to check it out. So BIM 360 Ops is available on both phone and iPad. So I was going to show you it on the phone. See if it's pulling up at the moment.
Alyssa, when you say phone, are you still saying on the iOS, so an iPhone, or is it available on Android?
Right now it's available on the iPhone and iPad, but I believe it's coming to Android as well.
Awesome.
So nothing is pulling up right today. Well, I can show it to you on the iPad if we need to. So in BIM 360 Ops, it's going to give them their portfolio, and this can have multiple buildings attached to it. So it's going to show them how many issues they've got open, new and coming, how many are overdue for them to take attention, etc. And they can go ahead and add a building in for their use if they've got more than one than the building you're completing at the time. So if we go into this project here, so this building at 1550 Wawata, we can go and see the different items that are open for them to check, so they can create tickets for themselves. And maybe in here you're reminding them some initial maintenance as you hand over the building, so when they should change the filters or when they should do some checklists. We can also go and see the different assets. So this is what we just entered in. So we can see the different pieces of equipment and all the information related to them. So in here, they can track any scheduled maintenance. They can go see any tickets associated, any video, photos and videos that you've added. Maybe you have a training video that you're handing over, or some photos of the owner stock. And then here's the documents and manuals. So the O&Ms and the startup manuals that we had attached are provided to the owners. So they're able to go and pull up those drawings or maintenance manuals on the spot from their phone or iPad. It'll also list the manufacturer, the model number. It can list the serial number, when it was installed, and when the warranty expires. And we can link barcodes to that, so they can use the barcodes, make comments, and track any information related to the assets. So really what it helps prevent is that owner from having to continue, you know, from the day that you hand the building over to the day they're really able to operate it well. They often have to retype all that information in and take everything that you gave them on this thumb drive or this Dropbox account and enter it all into their system if they have one. So what this does by entering all this data into Field is you can actually just hand this over as a bulk export to them and into their system. So if they don't have one, building ops might be a possibility for them, but it could also tie into Maximo and many of the other systems that they already own.
Hey, Alyssa, quick question that came up. What FM programs that you know offhand have BIM 360 add-ins? Can you name a few?
Yeah, so we can tie into most of them that I've heard of. Maximo is the only one that I've checked out recently that I know that we can tie in. So some of them, if they have a model add-in, that's a possibility. But if nothing else, we can at least get the equipment listed, manufacturer information and stuff like that they have as those properties. We can map those properties into their system. So almost any type of FM system that'll take a import can be tied together.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
None that have come in at the moment.
Because despite having some technical difficulties, I think we cruised through a lot of it. So I guess a couple things to summarize. If we are going to make the model useful to the field, really having the properties trustworthy and the ability for them to use those, such as door types or wall types, having those accurate and telling them that they're accurate. Also sharing views that they can find useful and help them get around the model. Showing them how to use the location button and guidance system so that they can go floor to floor and see the views that they need to see. And then also being able to link those models in a 3D fashion, so pitting to the model and being able to kind of track and view those issues from the model. On the owner side of things, and making the turnover more valuable to them by entering all this information into Field, we can really let them have this information from the day they move in. So this can cut down on the number of phone calls, asking who they should call and who the contact is, when they need to change filters, but it gives them a lot of information related to that piece of equipment. And that can all be customized by owner. So we can collect less or more information based on what they need. So we can add a bunch of custom properties if they're tracking how many filters it requires on which filters. We could add a custom property in here to track that for them. If they simply want, the serial number and the barcode and the name of the equipment, then we could provide as simple as that.
Great. We did have a question that just came in. All views and data and objects entered into Revit get tied into Glue and Field. Is that correct?
Right. So if the property is in Revit, then it'll pull through into Field.
Great. If you guys have any other questions, please put them in the queue and Alyssa can get to them. While we still have a couple more minutes. We do have another question that came in. Alyssa, what is your experience in implementing Field in terms of training users? Can you give us a little description on your background?
I can. So I've trained, like I said, probably, I don't know, over 1,000 users, and it definitely varies by position. So we just trained a couple foremen last week on Thursday, I believe it was, and it took us less than a half an hour. So it was super quick for them to get in there, and once it's set up on their iPad, they're signed in. You can simply show them kind of what they need, so how to get around the model and how to open issues and close them. For Field guys, the key is to making sure you tell them the benefits and really kind of keeping it simple. So for a Field guy, I'm only going to show them the iPad and what they need. I'm going to make sure they have a vest or some way of carrying around the iPad that makes it convenient and lets them work with two hands when they need to. So for a lot of Field guys that have phones or maybe iPads at home, that can be as quick as a half an hour. It might take up to an hour if you've got a few people with you and you want to make sure you get through that process. The other key I found with Field guys is to really, I almost don't even bother showing them how to use the product. We just walk through the product with them clicking. So we'll actually go through how to add an issue, and we'll go through how to complete the equipment checklist or how to add the serial number for that item. So that's for Field guys. Another thing I guess I'd note for Field guys is that when you have subcontractors, it seems pretty complicated and like there's all this stuff for them to learn. But the subcontractors can have a menu in Field on the iPad where it shows only their issues and only issues and checklists. So it can really cut down all of the noise for them, and they see very specific items related to them. So the uptick time for them to get used to the product when they go from GC to GC is a lot less. We also find that as a lot of general contractors use the product, they kind of cross-train on different projects, so they get better and better as they go. I would say now it's going to take a little bit more time to train project engineers. They're going to get into some more of the admin tasks, learning how to print reports, etc. So the key with them is also showing the benefits. So I often go over how easy it is to quickly schedule a report where each sub gets just their items and maybe the superintendent gets all of it, but really showing how to make their life a lot easier. I would say that the average PE training would take me an hour and a bit. Some project engineers might take an hour and a half just to kind of really get them going and get them used to the product. Anything else?
No, I think that's good. Any other questions coming? There's no other questions in the queue, so I guess we're gonna I'm going to give everybody back about 23 minutes of their lunch hour if you're on the Central Time Zone. If not, I'll give you 23 minutes back of your rest of your day. Thank you so much, Alyssa, for taking time out of your crazy schedule to give us a brief introduction into Field and Glue. And so if you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us here at CTC by either emailing info@cadtechnologycenter.com or email your individual sales rep.